Welcome to the Selling Show, where we unpack, repack, and break down exactly how CEOs, founders, and senior executives sell their ideas, point of view, and personal brand to the people who matter most. This is your host, David Newman, and you are in the right place if you want to build market eminence, amplify your influence, and attract high-value prospects, investors, partners, talent, and media opportunities with less chasing and more confidence. Let's go. You should write a book. No, really, you should write a book. No, you gotta write a book. You have to. For people to take you seriously, you have to write a book. Oh, writing a book is hard. I know. Listen, stop right there. I have the most amazing guest that's going to help you work through all of this craziness. Anne Bartolucci, welcome to the show.
Thank you, David. It's lovely to be here.
So our audience are consultants, thought leaders, experts, coaches, trainers, sales professionals, executives looking to make the leap into some sort of entrepreneurship. I'm going to estimate that approximately 97.335% of them would like to write a book, have always dreamed of writing a book, and are a little bit stuck and stymied about how to go about that and the whole mystery around the book writing process. I know that you've written several books and that you work with many, many authors to help them write a great book and a very interesting book, a very engaging book, a very fun book. Much more fun to write and much more fun to read than the average nonfiction business book. So, all of that to say, could you share a little bit about the professional backstory that brought you to the work that you're doing today, and what were some fun pit stops along the way?
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, it has definitely been a journey. And, as you are aware, every author journey is different. And so for me, it started when I was 2 years old. I wrote my first story. Don't worry, I'm going to make this fast. And I'm not going to go year by year because that would be a lot of years. But I wrote my first story. I dictated it to my mother, and apparently what it lacked in plot and character development, it more than made up for in enthusiasm. So I wrote all through school fiction. Of course, I did all the necessary nonfiction, got my PhD in psychology. That was a lot of nonfiction writing, although depending on how you feel about psychology and statistics, you might count it as fiction. Who knows? But then I got into the work world, and I always wrote stories because, as you can probably figure, the common thread with the authorship and the psychology is people are interesting. People's stories are interesting. And whether you're writing fiction or nonfiction, there are people who want to get somewhere and they have to overcome obstacles to do so.
Yeah.
And so I started my practice, Atlanta Insomnia and Behavioral Health Services. I help people sleep without drugs. And then I also wrote fiction, or still write fiction, as Cecilia Dominic, which, I keep my readers turning pages all night. Conflict of interest, business plan, you decide. And I also write nonfiction as me, and I help other people write nonfiction as well.
And in your spare time,
Oh, I also study and practice herbalism. You can see my yarrow hanging to dry behind me.
Oh, very nice. Very nice. Well, let's talk about this because I think there's so many myths. I mean, we could be on here for hours, and we probably will be. There's so many myths. For example, one myth I'm thinking of is, especially first-time nonfiction authors, they feel that they're writing the book. And everything that they know about the topic must go into this definitive 900-page, 160,000-word tome. And just the Herculean task ahead of them that they assign to themselves is so overwhelming that they rarely start and they certainly never finish. Mm-hmm. Talk about writing a book versus writing the book, and how do you talk your clients off that ledge?
Yes, it's a huge myth. And it's interesting that you bring that up because in one of my cohorts recently, somebody said, I'm becoming an expert as I write this book. And so part of the reason you write a book, sure, is to share your knowledge, but it's also to deepen your knowledge. And it helps you to connect to your readers and your clients in a new way because you're having to figure out new ways to explain things. And here's the thing, like, how many books have you written?
I've written 4 books.
And there's probably some overlapping information.
Yes.
And also, each book was its own learning experience. And when you got to the end of book 1, you weren't like, well, this is it. I can't ever write another word again. No, I was, yes, in my spare time, apparently I'm going to be a professional interviewer and panel moderator. And so I was at a event in Philadelphia a couple of weeks ago, interviewing somebody who was releasing a book for her summit. And I asked how it changed her. And she said, I think of myself as a writer now.
Oh, yeah.
And once you get that bug, once you start writing, you don't have to keep writing, but a lot of times you want to keep writing. And it's perfectly fine as you're writing a book to keep a file of other ideas for other books.
Holy tamales, what is better than this podcast episode right here? Well, I'm going to tell you, it is probably a keynote seminar or workshop on market eminence. If you want to bring that to your association, your conference, or your private mastermind to help your audience with 22 strategies to build a bold personal brand, become a business celebrity, and drive unstoppable growth, I would love to serve your group. Just drop me an email, david@doitmarketing.com.
That's such a great, let's take a little detour there because I think that's fascinating. And I've had that experience myself. When you're writing a book, I think it's very important because I'm like Mr. Creative Sparks. I'm like all over the place. I have no editorial genes in my body. So I work with a fantastic, amazing editor. And it's like right brain, left brain. But as the right brain creative whirlwind is going, I totally keep this kind of sidebar saying, okay, that's a great story. That's a great point. That's an amazing metaphor. Does not belong in this book. And then sometimes, what happens to the sidebar material? In my case, I have had the experience where the sidebar material goes into another book eventually. Sometimes the sidebar material can be, if it's close enough related to the main material, it becomes a book bonus or a lead magnet or a download or some kind of premium, right, content upgrade that people might get from my blog or from a podcast or who knows what. But there's definitely collateral material on the cutting room floor. People think that that's a waste or it's a dead end or they've taken themselves off task, or you'll hear them beat themselves up for, I'm just, I'm chasing down a rabbit hole and I really got to get back to the main book. Sometimes those little creative detours, I find, recharge you for getting back into the main text of the book. How do you recommend that your clients treat that sort of secondary world of material that might be generated?
Yes, well, first, absolutely do not delete it. Save it. And like you said, bonus content, lead magnets, also, and I thought this is where you were going when you said that, if it's closely related enough to the content of the book, put it out as a social media post and test the response. Because a lot of times people think I need to write either the book or social media. It's like, no, I teach my students to do both, to develop both, because that way you're getting immediate feedback on your ideas. And often people will ask you clarification questions that can then send you down more rabbit holes. And you know what, guys? It's always Wabbit season.
I like that. It is always Wabbit season. So let's talk about another myth. We talked about the book versus a book, the book that is, most current, most relevant for you to write right now, knowing that there's many other books in your future. People think nonfiction is dry. It's boring. It's facts. Even worse than facts. You know what? I'm going to have to do a whole bunch of research because I need footnotes. I need references. I need, tables of work cited. They're treating it like, as you well know, they're treating it like a PhD thesis. And my friends, the good news is, and the doctor's here to tell you, I'm not the doctor, Anne's the doctor. The doctor's here to tell you that a work of nonfiction can be very lively, very engaging, very exciting, and no footnotes, no references, no tables of tables. So, and talk about this whole, I have to assign myself the world's worst job by writing the most dry, boring, facts-only version of what's in my head.
Right, because if you don't get it all exactly right, X expert is going to come down from on high and publicly shame you. Because that is typically the thing that people are afraid of. Somebody actually said that in one of my classes. But here's the thing, is we are all human. We are all interested in story. And as humans, we are hardwired to convey and to receive information via the medium of story. Think about your favorite teachers. What did they do? They didn't just spit facts at you. They made it interesting, and they probably made it interesting by making them into stories or puzzles. And because our brains love to solve things. And I mean, how many times? Yes, there are absolutely those nonfiction books that are super dry. It's just fact, 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 fact. And those are the books that nobody finishes unless they absolutely have to. The ones that keep you going, sure, they're not written like a novel, but they have enough of that fiction structure in them and underlying them to keep you interested and to keep you going. And there are lots of different structures that you can employ to help that happen.
Now, as people are hearing that, I want to draw a distinction. I think it's a distinction, but please correct me if I'm wrong. There are a lot of these business books, a lot of these nonfiction business books, and I guess nonfiction other books too, that are in the form of a fable. Right. And so it's the fable version of how to lose weight, how to sell your company, how to be a better leader, all of these kinds of things. So we are not talking about fableizing your book, correct?
Correct. Yes. Thank you for making that clarification. Yes, I do remember one of the early business books that I read was about a guy who was trying to figure out how to sell widgets better. And it was a fableized story.
Yes.
And, mediocre fiction at best. Sorry.
Yes.
Not sorry.
So tell us a couple of the structures. Tell us a couple of the structures that you teach your clients. How can we introduce some of these much more engaging, much more compelling fiction structures into our nonfiction?
Well, I'm sure if people have studied story brand, they're familiar with the concept of your reader is the hero.
Yeah.
And it's thinking about it from that perspective, because in each story, the hero wants something. They're not getting it. And then how are they going to overcome the things to be able to get it?
Yeah.
And by talking to the reader that way, you're helping to establish empathy. And there is a structure that is myth structure, where it's basically a sequence of obstacles to be overcome, each in graduated difficulty. And making sure that those are things that your readers are indeed facing can be super helpful. But rather than saying, and you need to put out X number of posts per day or per week in order to maintain your social media following, it's, all right, now think about so-and-so who is following you on social media. What are they looking for? What do they want to get to? What's not working for them? Talk to them from that perspective. And so that's sort of a high level thing. And there's other structures which, unfortunately, the robots have co-opted, like the rule of three, which is a classic one, like the, good, better, best is one sequence. There's the Eat, Pray, Love. It was a great book, completely nonfiction, great lessons. And it was, one solution, opposite solution, central solution that combines the best of both. And often our brains pick up on these without us even realizing that that's what they're doing.
Yeah. Wow. So you mentioned about AI sort of polluting the ecosystem for writers. in your experience, I'm sure you get a ton of questions about this from students and just your fan base and audience. What is the healthy role of AI these days for nonfiction writers? Like what kinds of things should we be using AI for that you feel are healthy, smart, useful? And where can we kind of go down some bad pathways where we get lazy or silly or start to abdicate our voice to AI?
All right. So one area that could be helpful, and I was actually doing this right before we got on, was, hey, Eglantine. Yes, I've named my chat GPT. Her name is Eglantine. Actually, she named herself. Hey, Eglantine, here is an excerpt from the introduction to my nonfiction book in process. Please turn this into a social media post, which she did. She basically just trimmed it down. And then, great, please turn it into a 5-slide carousel script. And so it can be immensely helpful with marketing. And of course, I'm going to go in and take out the robot voice and make it mine again. But it can be a really good way to help you parse things down. It can also be, used sparingly as an outlining partner. Like if you are thinking, okay, let me write a book on, I've got widgets in my head. Let me write a book on selling widgets. What are the most common things that people search? So it can be a great search engine. And its dangers, though, are, well, first, you don't want to use it to draft because, yes, robot voice all sounds the same. Plus, if you are doing that, you are not developing your own writer voice, which is something that a lot of people are not talking about.
Yeah.
So I'll send you the link to my Substack article that I wrote on that, which is, thank you. And then another thing is copyright concerns. If you lean too heavily on AI, you legally cannot copyright your work, which ends up being a huge problem because then, of course, people can copy it. Or it's like, I've got 7 books in the upcoming lawsuit, so hoping for a nice payday in the fall.
Right.
But if they had not been copyrighted, I wouldn't have been able to claim them.
Yeah. When are those checks coming? Do you know?
I don't know. Because I saw that, I just looked it up, and apparently the final settlement is May 14th, and then they're going to start dripping out payments in the fall. At least that was the last that I saw. So we'll see.
So you've got 7 checks coming. I only have 3 checks coming, but I'll take it.
Yeah, seriously.
Why not?
Wait. We're not just going to listen to this episode. There are downloads, there are resources, there are links, there are bonuses waiting for you on this episode's page when you go over to doitmarketing.com/podcast. That's right, doitmarketing.com/podcast. Grab the notes right under this episode. See you over there.
Give me an example, if you would, of almost like a prototypical client of yours comes to you and I'm working on this book. I'm kind of stuck. It's really dry. Forget about the AI. Let's say they didn't use AI. Who doesn't use AI in 2026? But let's say they didn't use AI. So that's not their problem. Dryness is their problem. Too much facts, information overload, fire hose syndrome, you name it, you've seen it all. How do you help this person sort of unpack either chapter by chapter or even page by page? This could be a story. This could use a metaphor. This needs a little more texture and color. I mean, do you kind of do it that granularly, or do you send them off and going, listen, I'm going to send you back 3 macro level rewrite guidelines? Or do you go kind of page by page, section by section? Like, how does it work if someone's really stuck in this writer hell of dry, boring nonfiction dreck?
You sound like you've been there.
I think I have.
Yes. What I will typically do with people is bring them through my alchemist's pen process, which is to help them look at it, I guess, kind of like on a macro level. Let's really look at the book structure. Let's make sure you're getting the story, that you're getting the flow, making sure that your reader is going to have the transformation you want them to, and use that as the overarching framework, and then doing that within sections as well.
Yeah.
And I will, as part of my packages, I will do up to 40 pages of manuscript review per session.
Yeah.
And that's where we look at, okay, yes, this is where we could use another case study. This is where we need a story. This is where things get too dry, or this paragraph goes on too long. I mean, they're essentially getting sort of developmental edits as we go as well. And, that also helps them to learn the process as they go. So by the time they get to the final chapters, they're a lot better at it.
Yes. Oh my gosh. So you're giving them the fish as you're teaching them to fish.
Exactly.
To use the old metaphor. I want to ask about two ends of how the writing process are different when people adopt this amazing methodology. The first part is, if someone is to rewrite their book, or even a chapter of their book, put it out to some beta readers, right? Beginning of the process. What kind of feedback do we typically get from beta readers if we do this your way versus if we do it the dry, boring walls of text way?
If you are doing it the dry, boring walls of text way, your beta readers are going to, because I'm sure they like you, so they're going to say, it just dragged for me. It just didn't really keep my interest. Whereas if they're doing
which means I stopped reading on page 4.
Exactly. I gave it the 50 pages my English teacher in high school told me to give any book before I put it down, and then I put it down.
Right.
And so, but if they're doing it my way with the Alchemist pen, they're going to be getting the useful feedback like, okay, this needs to be clarified. I felt like you went on about this too long, or you repeated it too much, which, people still do in stories. But it's going to be the things that are way more useful and easier to fix.
Yeah, really great. Now, you and I are both fans and friends of the amazing Robbie Samuels, book launch strategist extraordinaire. One of Robbie's methodologies, what he helps people with, is early Amazon reviews, right? Reviews are so critically important. I know you've got some amazing reviews. I was lucky to work with Robbie, and I have some amazing reviews that were just prompted by his very structured process. Same question, Anne. Early Amazon reviews with your way, early Amazon reviews for books that have the kind of typical boring walls of text way. Same, just to be clear for folks, same subject matter, same theme, same topic, same title. The book is the same. One is the way that they would write it on their own. God bless their hearts. One is the way that they do it with the structures, the stories, the characters, the engagement, the compelling format that you help them create. What does a typical Amazon review look like one way versus the other?
So if it was without my method, it might be, on the worst end, 1 star, DNF. Or, almost worse are the 3-star ones, because damning with faint praise, which is great information. I might use this in the future. But if it's with my way, it's like, wow, couldn't put it down. Couldn't stop reading. I learned so much without realizing I was learning a lot. We'll definitely be keeping this one on my shelf. Oh my gosh, look at all these sticky notes.
That is a profound difference, right?
Yes.
I mean, big. Wow. Well, so as we're landing the plane, I've got 2 final questions for you. The final question is, how can people get connected and stay connected to more Anne Bartolucci brilliance? But we'll get to that in a moment. Before that, my second to last question is, if people were to take one overarching concept away from our conversation today about tackling their first or next nonfiction book, what would you like that core takeaway to be?
It would be, what is your reader transformation? Where do you want them to start their journey, and where do you want them to end the journey? Or where do you know they are when they start their journey to where do you want them to be when they end the journey. So, for example, I actually am working on a nonfiction book about my process. And so at the start of the journey, my readers are pretty much, as you were saying, they are overwhelmed. They don't know where to start. They might be dealing with a whole lot of imposter syndrome. They're not sure if their book's even going to sell. Yeah. And so at the end of the journey, they're going to have a book that they know fits the market, that fits a market need. They know that they are going to bring their reader along on a compelling journey and that they're going to enjoy writing it because we, like I said, we love writing and telling stories.
Now, where can people go to get connected and stay connected to more Anne Brilliance? What links should go in the show notes? And it's can be anything and everything that you want people to click on, engage with, and have as a resource.
Well, my website is psychupacademy.com. You can go see more about my offerings and about me and book a free 30-minute book idea clarification call so that we can go ahead and get started on this for you right away. I also give quarterly, sometimes more than quarterly, free workshops. And so we'll put the link to the next one in the show notes as well. I'm also going to be doing a writing retreat in the fall. And so I will have a form if you would like to get added to the waitlist. We're going to be doing the Alchemist Pen in a weekend. So that's book outline, start of a marketing plan, and also a first chapter. We're going to be ambitious.
That's in person or virtual?
In person.
Oh, nice. Very nice. What else?
My LinkedIn is my name, Anne Bartolucci, and also I don't think there's another one on there. And then my Instagram is Psychup Academy.
Fantastic. Well, Anne Bartolucci, thank you for all of this wisdom, and thank you for eliminating the scourge of dry, boring walls of text nonfiction books, because ain't no one got time for that.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much. This has been fun.
And that wraps up another episode of The Selling Show. Hey, tell you what, if you like us, rate us and review us on Apple Podcasts, subscribe, tell a friend, go grab the notes and downloads and extras at thesellingshow.com. See you next time.